Cool. All right, we're back on. Yes.
Okay, all right, we're back on. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Before we move on to presentations, I know we had public comments, but I know Layla is here, MEF president, to come and share with us a few things.
Happy last board meeting of the school year, everybody. Tonight is my last board meeting as MEF president. So I just want to say thank you to all of you guys, to the entire Millbrae School District, for all the support you've given our kids and all the guidance you've given us this year. This year was a different year in the economy, in the job market, in a lot of different things. I'm happy to report, though, that it didn't slow MEF down. We will likely be able to write the same check that we wrote last year for close to $600,000 to keep programming going next year here in our district. And we just couldn't do it without all of the partnership through every corner of our community, from our students who harassed family members and friends and aunties and uncles during our readathon. We raised over $50,000 this year through our MEF readathon, through all of the hundreds of volunteer hours to put on events like the Holiday Boutique, of course, our annual fundraising gala. We brought back Blue Shirt Days for those of you that have been around a while. And the incredible thing about the Blue Shirts Day is that 2 of our board members, we just said, hey, can you just do it? And can you guys make it happen? And they rallied all of the parents at all of the school sites and had, incentives and games and all this stuff. And they were able to raise over, I think it ended up being truly like 2 days of fundraising, over $25,000. And I want to give a special shout out to Millbrae Park, who had the highest number of givers. And so over 30 families donated from Millbrae Park during those Blue Shirt Days, and we're just always blown away by the partnership from every school level. For our gala and our silent auction and our live auction, we raised over $235,000 just across those events. And we're not stopping. Like, if you are parents and you're tuning in or you're here, our annual fund drive is still going. And we are just really thankful for everyone coming together, banding together, and doing everything that they can to bring programs, teachers, music, STEAM, reading, PE, all of those wonderful things to our district. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, everybody who's here. And I'm so sad to be done, but not really, but I love you all. And thank you so much.
She will be a Millbrae parent for many years.
So since we went back to public comments, this is just a trustee comments. I'm going to say thank you for the 3 years that you've given us as the MEF president. We really appreciate it. You really kind of went above and beyond. And so, there's a big shoes to fill here. And so if you need help us recruiting board members for the MEF,
we need a new president.
You have a conclave.
In reality, we don't have a president for next year. And so all of the parents in the district are going to get kind of a scary gram this week, saying like, hey, we have, like, by our bylaws, we have to have a secretary, a president, and a treasurer. And right now, there is no president. Nobody's raised their hand to say, I'm going to do this. And then secretary and treasurer are kind of, really our entire board is a little bit up in the air. So if you have parents, friends, whoever that are interested in volunteering, we are going to be putting that ask out, because if we don't fill those positions, MEF will need to close its doors and wind down operations. So, because I'm done. And our board, it's a very long-serving board. I'm not the only 3-year member, so we are going to be, heavily recruiting till the end of the year and throughout the summer. But we'd really like to see those board positions filled before the end of the year. We've got a lot of folks raising their hand to say, I'll help however, but not in that role. So I just talk pretty, there's many more things and skills that need to be done to fill that role. So if you have ideas, please let me know.
Thank you for the update. Next presentations, Child Nutrition Service. Director Rich Gapes is here to give us an update about our new recipes that we have. How is dinner?
Oh, it's delicious.
Oh, really?
Hungry minds cannot learn, right? We all know we can't work very well. So this presentation is focused on our Brigade partnership. For those of you who don't know what Brigade is an outside contract where essentially chefs come into school districts and they support schools with learning how to implement scratch cooking. It takes a village to raise our children. It takes a village to support food service operations and to learn. So I am not a culinary I didn't introduce myself. Can I stop and back up? I'm so sorry. Greetings. Good evening. I'm so sorry. President Musa, Vice President Chin, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Kumbi. Thank you for letting me stop and start over. Again, so this is our Brigade Board presentation. So I reached out to Brigade almost 2 years ago because we had some kit money that we had to use, some grant funding. And I needed to figure out what to do with this $212,000 that we were granted. So one of the ideas that I had was to really elevate our program, do some scratch cooking, but I just didn't quite know how to start. And so I learned about Brigade through some colleagues of mine, other school districts that are doing this whole scratch cooking endeavor. And I was really nervous actually in the beginning. I wasn't sure if it was going to work. I didn't know if we were the right district for this type of partnership and what I could do to really move our program forward with Brigade. And the more I talked to Dan, the owner of the company, not Dan, but the more I talked to Dan, the more I realized, this is something really viable that I can look into. And so their motto, one of the things that I really liked was just, they let us define what food service should look like for our home district. It wasn't them coming in with, this is an idea of what you're going to do and this is how you're going to do it. It's, what is it you want as Millbrae? What are your goals and how can we help you get there? And so that, I think, was a really nice introduction for me to really get this going. So basically, again, I talked about it. We got this funding through the CDE, the USDA. All this money has kind of been pouring into child nutrition programs that sadly might stop sometime soon here, but we're taking full advantage of it while we can. And we started this essentially in August of 2024 is really when Aaron came on board. But before we got Aaron here, the company's owner, Dan, came here in October of the year prior, so 2023, and he did a full-blown assessment of our operation. So he went and visited all 5 schools. He looked at what we were currently doing. He looked at our facilities. He looked at our staffing. He looked at what I was doing and what my role was here in the district. And he provided us with an assessment of what, really what we were accomplishing, what some of our successes were, what some of our challenges were, and helped kind of paint a picture for where we could move forward and how we could move forward. And from there, they then hire a chef. They find the chef, they recruit the chef, and they find somebody that's going to work with what we need. And so I'll let Aaron talk about how he was actually partnered with us because he knows a little bit more about that story than I.
Yeah, sure. So I've been working for Brigade for about 4 years. So I have about 3 years of experience working within school food prior to this partnership. Before that, I was working primarily in restaurants as a chef, and our company hires chefs that are culinary trained and often working in restaurants and partners them with school districts. So I have been working in Denver with the school district there for about 3 years, so I had a good amount of experience. And then when this partnership became available, again, reached out to me and said, hey, I have partnership available, is this something you'd be interested in working on? And I was, and so we started a partnership in August of last year.
So this is a little different of a typical program that Brigade does. So a lot of the times they actually bring a chef in and they work full-time in the district. They're there 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, 1 school year, 2 school years, however long their contract is. We have a little different of a partnership. So Aaron comes about once a month. He started coming 3 days within 1 month's time, and then we've extended over the last few months to have his visits last for 4 full days because we've been keeping very busy, and we've really kind of been enthusiastically moving the program forward, I would say. And so he visits the sites once a month. We actually have weekly meetings, so you'll see our weekly Zoom meetings. It's a very structured kind of process that we undergo every week. And we talk about all of our goals for the week, what we did the last month, what our kind of focus area is, what we want to fix, what we need to implement. And then with his monthly on-site visits, he prepares these really great schedules to keep us kind of on track. And they're really detailed down to almost the hour with what tasks he's going to work on every day. And again, what we're going to accomplish for those monthly visits. During the assessment, and again, this was back in October of 2023, some goals were identified, and Dan wrote this entire document, and I'm sure all of you guys had a chance to review that a year and a half ago or so. And there were about 5 goals that were identified at that time, and some of these are moving targets, so it's not necessarily just a year 1 goal. Some we tried to kind of dabble in year 1, others we realized maybe we need to slow down and move that on to another year. One of the biggest things was we need to kind of redesign our menu, and we haven't gotten there yet. This is an ongoing target that takes really a lot of planning and a lot of change, and we're not quite able to completely revamp our menus yet, but that's one of our goals. We have been really focused on increasing the food quality and consistency, and you'll see in some future slides really how we've been meeting that goal, but I think this is probably one of the biggest things I'm most proud of is just some of the changes and things that we've made with our menus so far. They're certainly not perfect. We do have a long way to go, but we've made some really great progress that I'm very proud of. The other idea is to really utilize Taylor as our central hub. And what that means is preparing most of our scratch cooked meals at Taylor and shipping it out to the elementary school so that we can reach all of our schools. And this is a goal that's going to be pushed out into year 3. Hopefully we can have year 3 with Brigade. There's a lot of logistics around that we just aren't currently set up for. But we're again, dabbling in that. We're doing a little bit at a time. Some of the items that you guys may test today, we've sent out to the elementary schools, but when we're talking about full-blown entrees at the elementary schools, and turning the middle school into that production hub, we're not quite there yet. We're really focusing on Taylor right now, figuring out process and procedure at Taylor, seeing how the Taylor kiddos are responding, and we'll reach out to the elementary schools. But that is a goal of mine, and we're just not quite there yet. The other thing that was addressed in the assessment was our facilities. Our maintenance team does a fantastic job of keeping us up and running. They are there at the drop of a hat. Anytime we have an issue, our maintenance team is on it. They're fixing it, they're supporting us, they're getting us up and running. But there are some bigger picture things that take a lot more than just our maintenance team is capable of doing. Replacing flooring, replacing serving light areas, all those sorts of things that are really flushing, more infrastructure based. But some of those items in the assessment were really called out, and if we want to have a foundationally strong program, we really have to look at our facilities and get them up to speed so that we can be successful with our partnership. And then just standard operating procedures, that's a term in the cafeteria world. I don't know if any of you have ever heard that before, but it's just really basic operating procedures that all of our staff, all of our kitchen should follow so that we're operating safely, it's consistent, you get the same results from kitchen A, kitchen B, kitchen C, and that sort of thing. And so we are working on updating those, addressing those, and again, those will come with time, and we'll address those as we need to. So far?
Yeah, I think we made some great progress in some of these goals for year one, and especially like increasing some of the food quality and some of the consistency, and really just like rolling out a lot of new recipes this year. So it's been an exciting year, and we have a lot of good goals to look forward to continuing to work on.
So essentially, I kind of was really thinking about what does this program and partnership mean to me, and I broke it down into 4 focus areas, and some of these terms I will say I have stolen from Brigade, but that's okay. So one pillar is talking about a foundationally strong program. A second pillar is staff development. A third pillar is scratch cooking implementation, and then the 4th is student engagement. Not one of these is any more important than the other. Not one of these necessarily happens before the other. They kind of all happen at the same time. And we'll talk about each one briefly, really quickly. So what is foundationally strong? Well, just as an organization, we need to make some organizational improvement. So you'll see on the right, not necessarily a picture that I can say I'm super proud of, but it's a learning process and it's a learning opportunity. So you'll see, the way that we were storing food in our refrigerators, they were closed, they were sealed, they were safe, but it just wasn't organized. But like when you think about maybe Panda Express, if you've ever seen Panda Express and how beautiful everything is all in containers and nice and neat and organized, right? We just quite weren't focusing on that in our kitchens, and still there's some work to be done there. And our staff is busy. Not to say that they don't care, but they're very busy in their day. They, are working as fast as they can, and sometimes they just put things away safely, right? But it's not necessarily the most organized. And so this is now what our refrigerators look like when you look at some of them. Maybe not all of them, maybe not every day, but it's a big improvement. Things are labeled, things are in specific containers, and it just looks and presents 1,000 times better. I know I had another picture. Equipment needs. So we don't quite have all the equipment that we need to really progress and move forward with scratch cooking in the way that, at least my vision, that I would like to see. One really great item that we purchased this year, we've had a few little chaotic moments with this thing, but we're okay. It's called a RoboCoop, and instead of hand dicing tomatoes, imagine how much time that takes, this thing chops it up in seconds. And it's just such a time saver, it's actually uniform, it's nice and neat, and it just makes a huge difference in our kitchen. So getting those little types of small wares, we're building our kitchens up so that they have all the small wares that we need. We're still learning about all of the small wares that we need. We're making some larger purchases like the combi oven that's coming in hopefully in June, so that we can have these really nice new pieces of equipment that's going to help our efficiency. We talked about food safety. Erin trains the team on food safety, the do's and the do-nots. One-on-one culinary training. Maybe I can have Erin talk about that here for a second.
Yeah, I think we've been able to spend a lot of time doing some one-on-one culinary training this year, especially with Lynn, who just joined the district and is a new cook. So it's been really valuable to be able to spend a lot of time with her. There's just not really a ton of opportunity for training. So sometimes in a lot of these situations, somebody might just be handed a recipe and just be expected to make it without really having the opportunity to go through a training. So that's something we've done a lot of this year. Like when we're doing a new recipe, I will work with her directly one-on-one. We'll walk through the whole recipe together, all of the steps to complete it. And then maybe the next time I'm more just having her do the recipe while I'm there for support and there to answer questions. So I'm really just giving the opportunity for the staff to ask questions, to have some one-on-one training, because a lot of staff that are in this space don't really have classic culinary training. They might not have gone through the same food safety training that other restaurant staff have gone through. So it's just a really great opportunity to work one-on-one and also to train on equipment pieces like the RoboCoop. I think if somebody was handed that piece of equipment without being given a really clear demonstration of how to use it safely, it's really hard to figure out how to use it. You're like, what are all these pieces? I don't understand how to clean it correctly. So just having some opportunities to really set some time aside to work on those equipment trainings as well.
And then finally, menu redesign, we're getting to that. The second pillar, staff and leadership development, so we just touched on that, but I just want to share how valuable this experience for me has been as a leader. As you know, I'm not culinary trained, and having Erin's help and support to guide me and to guide our team has been so incredibly rewarding. My confidence has gone up with what we're doing, and I feel like if I can be a strong leader, then my team will benefit from that. And so he's just really been a valuable source of support. He provides some really amazing tools that I just don't necessarily have time to put together myself. These are just some examples of documents that we are going to post all around the kitchen for what the work expectations are. Storage standards. These are all standard operating procedures, like I mentioned earlier, that we have written documentation on. That takes a lot of time. And Brigade has these amazing templates so that I don't have to recreate them. And there's some tools for measurement conversions, like he was saying. A lot of staff might not be able to do the math that quickly or easily to make these recipes. So they have these really amazing tools that I use heavily. The next pillar is the fun one, is scratch cooking. So we've actually done quite a bit more than 15 new recipes this year, but I needed to be fair because some of them just didn't make the cut. And so I dialed that number back down. But I was just going to flash through a few photos really quickly of what we've done so far this year. Like I said, some of them have been a really huge hit. Some of them a flop. I was very, very ambitious this year in putting quite a few new recipes on the menu at the beginning of the year, and realized very, very quickly that I need to follow their lead. I need to slow it down. We need to actually test these recipes. We need to test process, procedure before just throwing them on there and saying staff is going to figure it out, because it really didn't work. And so I learned the hard way. It was a really great learning opportunity for me. But I'm very, very proud of some of the stuff that we've done so far, making all of our dressings in-house now. It's just been an incredible experience. And a really fun part of my job, one of my most favorite things that I really kind of miss when I get up too often, is student engagement. So getting the kids involved, because there's no point in us just working in a kitchen and not getting their feedback, not getting their input, not really having them engaged in the process. So I had said when I first got hired that I really wanted to do a lot of taste tests and a lot of education, and I dabbled in it a little bit over the years. You can see these were really kind of the only few opportunities that before Brigade came on board that I was able to meet with students. And I won't go through each one of them, but they were very few and far between. And with Erin's help, we've been able to do some large-scale taste tests in multi-purpose rooms. We did kale, and they were excited about kale, which was so cool. And we don't have it today, but we did an edamame noodle salad. And so, we have like it bins or don't like it bins where the kids can vote, so we can actually get real-time feedback. So we've done a few of those, and then we've done some smaller taste tests, which has been very, very rewarding. We have a student speaker here. I know I'm a little over time, I'm sorry. A student speaker here to share her experience with us. You want to come up, Soleil? But these are just some examples of what we did. This was Meadows, and Principal, I call Julie, but she created an invite for her students, which I thought was an awesome little addition to the process. And so she invited 10 students. She had this really cute little flyer. I do a survey. I give the kids a pen or a pencil and eraser. They get, their little names on a plate. They get a little stuffing with a fruit or a vegetable. And they just really have a lot of fun. So it's not just about food, but it's about the experience. And so this has been my most favorite part of the whole year. We've done a few of these. And this is at Taylor. So we have a fabulous student, Soleil. She was one of our taste test participants. I thought it'd be really nice for you just to hear a minute or two about, the students in their own voice of what the experience was like, and whatever else you want to share about meal service.
Hi, my name is Soleil Reader. I'm going into 7th grade next year, and this is what I thought of the taste test. My overall thoughts about doing the food testing is that it allowed me to help out the school community to get more of the kids at Taylor to try and eat the school food. It also let me share my ideas and feedback about the new and present cafeteria food. During the testing, it allowed me to share and agree on my ideas with others. I enjoy the school lunch every day at school, so being able to try the upcoming lunches and breakfast foods will help me and many more of the Taylor students grab something different than the same food every time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we did recently we did a survey at Taylor, and I really didn't want to hear some of the stuff. I was like, okay, I know that this is gonna be very hard to soak in, right? But it's important. And we got a ton of responses. We got 259 responses, which I was really blown away by. So I feel like a lot of times there's not a whole lot of information that comes back. And 64% of the kiddos eat lunch. So our average rating was 6, a little higher than 6, it was 6 point something. I'm gonna take that point something as far as I can. But you know, for middle school, I have to say, I actually was pleasantly surprised, to be really honest. And especially with the 64%. I don't love this slide so much. So this was the reasons why students do not participate. And some of them, they just don't like the menu. Whatever we're offering is just not meeting their needs. So that means we need to do some work. We need to figure out what it is they want and put those items on the menu. But this is very telling. The line takes too long. I'm hearing that over and over again. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get another serving window open next year, so that maybe our percentages will go up even higher because more kids are trying it and more kids are going to like our food. Here are some very fun and colorful comments that some of the kids thought. I don't have to read them all, but there's some. It is not yummy. I don't particularly love that one, but that's okay. I did love how the students were calling out our staff, how friendly and nice that they were. And that's such an important part of the whole experience, right? You all saw them McNuggets fries. I can't do that. They would love it if I could. But it was a really informative and valuable survey. And because of that, we're adding new items. So one of the things that the kids wanted on the menu were smoothies and overnight oats. So overnight oats are on the menu this week. Smoothies are being offered on Friday for the very first time. We'll see how it goes, but it's these kinds of surveys that is getting the information we need to do a better job. And I'm going to talk over you, Erica, sorry. Just a couple more slides. So we've had some surprises and challenges. These are just a couple, so light items. This is our scratch-made grilled cheese. This is our manufacturer-made frozen item. I think, which one looks better? This one over here, right? The kiddos actually kind of preferred the other one. So it's really surprising when you think about, you make this beautiful new item, and it's a lot, well, maybe necessarily, not necessarily healthier per se, because it's all bread and cheese, right? It's all the same thing. But sometimes the kids don't necessarily like all the scratch cooked stuff. So it's just finding that balance and making it work. Student perceptions, a lot of kids are saying, we want real cheese. Well, we don't offer big cheese in any of our items, but it's nice to know that it gets made. And so when we did macaroni and cheese, we're doing it again tomorrow from scratch. I made a sign and it said, real cheese, so that they know that they're getting real cheese. And then a challenge is just, aligning the speed of progression with our ability to progress. And that makes sense to me. And then when I try to explain it, I'm not sure if it's going to come out right. But, we just have to really make sure that I want to go very fast. I want to make changes now. I want to move. But we really aren't at the pace to just make a change like that. We have to be methodical, thoughtful. We have to make sure our staff is trained so that they know what to do. They're comfortable, they're confident. We have everything that we need. So while we want to go quickly, we have to stop and pause and really do this successfully. Do you have anything to?
Yeah, I would just like to share that. I think you're right. You have to be thoughtful in the choices we make and getting the staff ready for that. And progress can sometimes feel super slow. It's like moving from a bag of mac and cheese to a scratch mac and cheese is like one small step. But I think we've also made a lot of really good progression. Like when I look back on this year, like walking in the kitchen this week, I was looking through a stack of recipes that we've done, and it's like there's like 40 pages of just recipes that we've been working on, sitting on the counter there, and there's recipes out, there's people using immersion blenders and knives in the kitchen, they're cooking food in the tilt skillet, so progress can sometimes feel really slow, and it's like the goal is always gonna continue moving. I don't think we're ever gonna reach a point where we're like, we've done it, we've solved school food, and it's done now. Like, it's always gonna be a moving goalpost, so I think it's really awesome to see the progress this year, and even though it feels slow, like, it's definitely there, and I think once you kind of, like, in the idea of aligning the speed, like, once the ball gets rolling a little bit, it just really allows us to start moving a lot faster now that we've done some trainings on recipes, on how to read a recipe, on how to set up your station. It's like, well, the foundation is there, and now we can really start making a little bit more change. So I think we've set a lot of really good like foundational steps this year, and I'm excited to see what we can continue to do.
And what is next? Good segue. Just continuing to organizationally improve our program. We want to focus on elementary schools, more staff development, and more recipe testing and implementation. So with that, we will have a contract renewal with Brigade for next year, and hopefully beyond. And that's it. Thank you. Sorry.
Because I think we might have some comments or questions for you guys. I have to commend you because cooking for a family of 5 at home is a challenge. Now I can't even get my 3 kids and my husband on the same page for a meal, or you get that. And you did this again, so I get it. So, you know, you've done so much progress. I mean, it's just the fact that we're even in the process of making fresh food for our kids, it's amazing. One is I'd like to see as a board for us, what can we do, decisions that we can make in terms of budget, how we can, things that we can do and buy and purchase to make the process a little bit easier on your end. So anyway, I'm going to open up to my colleagues if they have any questions or comments. Trustee Fryer, would you like to?
Well, just Rachel, you're a superstar. There's no doubt about that. So thank you. You have brought us to a whole nother level. When I look back on 10, 15 years ago, I mean, it was just a totally different 20 years ago. I mean, so you are.
I felt like I was aspiring to get back. Thank you.
No, you're definitely a superstar. And I'm so glad we have the contract with Brigade. I mean, that, just having labels like that, just having measurements posted around, containers, I guess you had to buy containers rather than using baggies to store everything, right?
Yes.
So, and that's just, I mean, seems like little things, but it's just, and to think we're entertaining the idea of scratch cooking is mind-boggling because we've got so far away from it. And now to think that our kids may have that in the future is really important, because there's nothing better than, you know, having someone in the kitchen cooking it for you as you come through. So I think, you know, just like working with Erin at Taylor and the other schools, getting those lunch lines shorter, that's huge. That's always been a problem. And then what was that? Oh, you have to go slow to go fast. And that's an expression I always have to think, because I always want it done yesterday, right? And it's, you know, that's impossible, right? So my main question is, how is your staff responding to all these changes?
You know, they're actually very positive. I think it's overwhelming for them at times, and I'm not even sure, honestly, I hear the whole truth, in all fairness. So I imagine it's overwhelming, but when we say we're going to do something, they're all in.
Great.
You know, and we have some items that we're trying, and I send an email, okay, who wants to try this? And we'll get a response back, we'll try it. And so it's really positive. And again, I think it's just, you know, I'm a big advocate for being part of the process. And so I hope in some way that's helping, but having an expert come and support them is so valuable, because, you know, they don't always want to listen to me either, right? Sometimes they want to hear from other people, which is very fair. And so I think just having that expertise is really making them understand how how huge this is, how big of a process this is, you know, and how it's gonna take a lot of learning and patience and time, and they seem very up for the challenge.
And you don't seem to have a huge turnover in staff.
Yes, I hope so.
I mean,
I hope
there
so.
was a time.
Not even, Claudia and I have
A
not.
lot of turnover.
Yes, since I've been here, I have actually had quite a bit of turnover, I would say.
Well,
and I hope
but
that
recently it seems to really calm down a bit.
Yeah.
I
We
changed
have
the
subs. And we have subs, yes, we have
And subs,
fabulous
yeah.
subs, yes.
Yeah.
No,
They
it's
had Barbara
very
and Bertie back there in the cafeteria, right?
Everybody loves, I mean, all the principals just have nothing but really wonderful things to say about all of our team members, so I'm really grateful for that.
And don't believe everything a middle schooler says, the Taylor line is not very loud, long.
It goes fast.
Oh, it goes very quickly.
Because there's a lot of people.
Yes.
It's amazing how.
And I timed it, I sat there and I timed it, and it's, you know, I'll tag one kid with a bright backpack that I can remember, and it's about 3 or 4 minutes for them to get all the way clear across wherever they're standing in the back through the line.
Yeah.
It looks very long, and it's intimidating.
I remember when we started the tickets where you had to go through the machine and we had to train staffing and to scan your ticket. I mean, all that takes time.
It does, yeah. Technology
you
is
can
an issue, not just problem, but just, you know, computers and
Right.
internet and.
But student buy-in is huge. Student buy-in, whenever you can get kids involved in any of it. I know trustee Beltrami and I were at the Mills Awards night last night, and they did a presentation for their classes and the graduates from the food. Yeah, it was amazing. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any other comments?
Quick
Comments, thanks for the time.
No, I think Lynn covered everything. Those good questions.
Too much.
So I just wanted to say, a couple of years ago when you first started, I came up to Taylor and I had lunch. And I had a Caesar salad and I had a chicken rice bowl. And I was in shock. I couldn't believe how good it was. And I stood in line. It wasn't like he gave it to me special or anything like that. I stood in line with the kids. So I got everything they got. I sat down by myself because no one sat by me. But I went home and I told my family, I said, "You're not going to believe this. I just had like one of the best chicken bowls I've ever had right up at Taylor. And a crispy, fresh Caesar salad. It was like to die for.
That's what it is.
So, I mean, that's my experience. My bad experience was years ago when my girls went to Spring Valley, and I was a food guru, and I went to Spring Valley and I got one of their lunches, and it was pizza that was eaten probably 2 days in a row, and so I realized why my kids weren't eating at the cafeteria. So we've come light years ahead of those old days, those backwood days, we'll call them. But keep up the good work, because the kids really need to enjoy their food. They really do. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely incredible that we're offering scratch food. I just never thought we'd get here. And I know I've been talking about it for a long time. And I think for some of these kids, it may be the only fresh cooked meal they might actually get. So I think it's really amazing that we're being able to offer this. Out of curiosity, how much is it more expensive to make it from scratch? Or I know we get sort of a reimbursement rate, and I'm kind of curious if it costs more or less than the prepared food.
Generally, it would cost less food cost wise. But again, food cost is really skyrocketing, right? So there's that factor. But generally, it costs less. It's the labor and the time. That's where you kind of make up for. We do a lot of DoD programs, so we have entitlement dollars. So that's a smart way of utilizing scratch cooking, using products that bring that cost down. So it kind of depends on how scratch we go, really.
Yeah.
Our food, I would say our food costs, and our budget necessarily hasn't changed a whole lot because we're still relying quite a bit on items that are not scratch yet, but we will get there.
Yeah.
look at there.
But once we do, will it be sort of a wash?
So they,
that-
well, it depends on if we change our labor. So, if we get to a point where we're doing a lot more scratch cooking and our labor ratios change, then we might need to add more staffing in order to make it happen. So the labor would go up.
Right.
I would say the same. I mean, it costs a lot less to make food from scratch, but you pay more, like you said, in labor and in training, and it's also like finding the items where it's worth it. Obviously like doing something like making croissants from scratch or something, it's like the labor experience that goes in that, and we're never gonna save money probably doing that. You're just gonna be like going down that hole, but you can find other items that, maybe a salsa or something like that. It's gonna be like much easier to make, maybe cooking your own potatoes or making your own grilled cheese rather than buying a pre-made product. And sometimes we do like cost analysis on that to see like, is this an item that's worth it in terms of money? But almost always like when you can go into scratch, you're gonna save money in the long run, but you do need to spend more on labor in order to produce that. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, we don't necessarily need to bake our own bread, but.
Yeah, we're gonna pick and choose what we scratch and don't scratch.
Yeah. Well, dinner was really good. We
Wonderful.
appreciated the meal. Everything was tasty and fresh, and if that's what you were able to serve for our kids, I mean, they're really, really lucky, because I don't think we've had scratch cooking in years, so.
Yeah, we've been in and out of it, so.
Yeah.
So,
That's great.
anyway,
Thank you.
Val.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Great presentation. And looking forward to see what you do next year. Okay, next on our presentation, Taylor Middle School Physical Education Framework. I'm gonna Julie Lester, our physical education teacher at Taylor Middle School.
Hi, hello, Superintendent Hickey and trustees. And first of all, I want to say, the chicken lettuce wraps, Rachel, are awesome. The chicken lettuce wraps, I'm like, I didn't even know it was supposed to. Somebody brought it in the office. Someone promised me this.
You will, just take the little clicker and press the right arrow. There you go.
All right, thank you. All right, so welcome, or hello. I am Julie Nestor from Taylor Middle School, 30 years, not quite 40. I'm here to tell you guys all about physical education. And our mission, I don't know if you all my mission and vision statement, you can see it out there, but we really wanted the kids to understand that movement is a part of life, not necessarily sport competition, but that movement and activities and learning their skills to promote their well-being and how it all affects them mentally, physically, and socially. They kind of all correlate into our PE department. We have set up our curriculum based on the state standards, of course, and we try to relate them to what the students we see daily. We've kind of moved away from when I started 150 years ago to from sports-specific stuff to fitness-related and independent activities that they can carry on through lifelong learning process. We have the units set up. There's 12 units, first and last being orientation and closure. And then we start with the cooperative learning skills, which actually builds upon what we're doing in Taylor with a lot of the SELs, getting to know the kids, building relationships with them. We test them for their pre-test and post-test for their fitnesses, and then we step into the units where they all are exposed to different gross motor skill patterns and things such as racket sports, dance and rhythm, foot manipulatives, hand manipulatives, net sports, evasion sports, target skills, striking. So these are just examples of the things that we can do. Each unit lasts about a month. And these are just some examples. We don't all do all. We do all of the units, but we might do a different activity. Like right now, I'm teaching bocce ball, and somebody else might be doing, cornhole. We don't have archery. But so these are the things that we do with the kids, and we've all been doing this as best practices for the last several years, even though this existed in existence right now only on paper. We start with the units. This is an example of a racket sport, and then how from 6th grade, what we teach them and how it progresses in 7th grade, 8th grade. So they do repeat, I do see the kids year after year after year. So they learn how to do something, and then in 7th grade, we get build upon it, and then in the 8th grade, we build upon it some more. And here's an innovation sport. So these are all set up with the framework that we have in California. And we have a really great program here. I'm really proud of it. I hear from a lot of colleagues around the area that, I mean, they're impressed that our students are dressed every day. We don't have a day that a student is not dressed in a PE uniform for whatever reason, unless they're on crutches. So they're participating every day. They're dressed, they're out there, and they're doing something. And we're taking this framework that we kind of built and turned into our living document that we kind of work from and grow from, and hopefully we'll continue from here on.
And just a little preface that I asked Ms. Nestor to come and just give a little background on it, but it will come back on district business. There's a longer, I think about 30-page document that's uploaded that gives the whole framework, and Ms. Nestor was just highlighting just an overview.
Our little kiddos.
Thank you.
I don't know if you guys have any questions I can
I have
answer.
one question.
Sure.
So are you still doing the dance off
We, dance off.
or the dance competition?
We do teach dance. We do teach the rhythm and dance, and that's the one unit that we team teach, where all of us collectively come together with the kids. And we teach them dance, and we haven't had the dance off since before COVID.
Okay.
We did teach them swing dancing, and then after COVID, we wanted to hold hands, so that became a whole other thing. The hand holding thing became an issue. So we've kind of moved away from that a little bit, hoping to bring it back, now that the times are settling down a little bit and hand sanitizer is readily available. But we do teach dance. We just don't have our little.
I just remember attending those and they were
It
so much
was
fun to see
amazing,
the
amazing to have
kids
hundreds of kids out there voluntarily after school having
dancing.
a dance competition.
Yeah, and some of them were so good.
Very good.
It was
You are
really
correct.
enjoyable.
They always amaze me. They teach us things. They teach
Yeah.
us things.
They-
Hundreds of them do the line dancing at the school dance every year.
Yeah, they show up at the dances and then they do, if you want to get the kids dancing, put on a line dance, they'll know how to do it.
And I just want to commend you on teaching pickleball. I am an avid pickleball player and I think
We
that's
love
great
pickleball.
that you guys
We
are
love
doing
pickleball.
that.
We got our new courts that have some pickleball on it. We got some new pickleball nets. We're rolling. We're trying to keep up with the times. We like the bocce ball. I've been doing with the kids last couple of weeks. We have cornhole that we teach them to do. We have golf stuff. We try to teach them lifelong skills that they can continue to do. We have fitness cycles where they independently do fitness work, run a walk, jog, with a friend or by themselves, and then do some cardio and then some muscular exercises as well. So where we can put them together and teaching them that fitness doesn't, stop at high school. You graduate high school and then you're done. It's a lifelong activity. So that's
great.
what we're trying to
Thank
do. And the social. I do tell my parents at back to school night that I teach social skills more than I do anything else, because if they can't figure out how to get along and work together and play together, then we've got other problems.
I'm sure coming back from COVID, that was really a challenge.
That was probably the biggest challenge coming back from COVID, was how to socially interact.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Our last presentation for the night is the results of the Panorama Millbrae District survey. Again, we're engaging our kids and want to hear what they have to say. Catherine Hessler.
Yeah, well, Ms. Moslem is.
Really?
But as Ms. Moslem is coming up, Panorama has 3 components. This is the first year we're using the survey. So it has the student component, the staff component, and the family component. I've asked Ms. Moslem to really focus on the student component, our students 3rd through 8th grade, because that was really a missing piece, is we didn't have our students actually giving the feedback.
Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening, President Musa, Vice President Chin, trustees, the crowd that just left, cabinet, MESD community that's watching at home. I'm really honored to share our student panorama survey with you. We have a little preview of what surveys can do to empower students with Mrs. Geckes' presentation, and then Ms. Nestor with just the engagement of social emotional learning, which is really an outcome of the panorama for the Ed Services Department we're talking to this evening. So without further ado, let's move forward. Our agenda this evening for the Panorama Survey is to take a look at the design, the participation, I'm going to give you an overview of the student data specifically, and then talk about some next steps. So the purpose really, as you've heard this evening, is to just get some meaningful feedback from our key stakeholders. And in this case this evening is we're going to focus again on the students, but we did survey our families, our staff, which includes classified and certificated, and of course, most important, our customers, our students. So it's really to inform our decision making. Where are we going to go? How are we going to get better as a school district? And to ensure that all the voices are heard. So one of my favorite leaders is Brene Brown. I found this quote that I felt really resonated and was relevant for this evening. It's about empowering others by really listening to their experience. And we can't argue with someone's experience, right? It's their experience. So I just want to share just a little bit about, my experience with the Panorama. I was not aware that our staff and our schools really wanted a renewed focus on social emotional learning, but when I read the comments for the Ed Services Department, it really kind of hit home. Oh my goodness, like I really need to work on this. So we really can help empower our students and our staff and our site leaders by just listening to what they have to say, right? So just wanted to begin with that and talk a little bit about the survey design. So we have here is a positively framed survey. So it starts with how respectful rather than are your teachers respectful? It's how respectful, right? So it's framed in a very positive way. And it connects to a larger skill or category. So in the sense where we are basically looking at the student experience, the school culture, you have a question, how respectful is your teacher towards you? And that connects to a broader category. So what you end up having are categories, which I'm going to talk about this evening, with percentages. So this is an example. Percent favorable refers to the percentage of survey responders that are survey responses that are favorable. So 86% would be 86 favorable responses, right, out of however many were surveyed. So if you can see here, this is an example question. How many of your teachers are respectful? None of my teachers, 1%, a few, 5%, almost half, 8%, and then it goes up to 38, 48. So the total of favorable adds up to 86%. So that's an example of what that refers to, the design of the survey. So what are the topics? So again, we talked about how we survey the students, we survey the teachers and the staff, and the families. So with student supports and environment, these are the categories that I'm going to talk about this evening. Sense of belonging, how well connected you feel. Teacher-student relationships, the reciprocity there. The climate of the school, and engagement. With teachers and staff, family support, leadership, site leadership, staff leadership relationships, and overall well-being. And with family school survey, it's background questions, so to get to know families, leveraging behaviors, support, and engagement. So those are the categories under each of the surveys that we administer. Okay, so participation. So again, this is the type of survey on the left-hand column, and we have the grade levels. So again, as I mentioned, staff is classified, and teacher refers to our certificated, and then family members. So you can see the totals here. We have 70% of our 3rd through 5th graders that responded to the survey, 81% of 6th to 8th graders. Of our teachers and staff, we had 35% classified and 45% certificated. And our lowest result was the family members, which was less than 10%. So this is broken out by school site. So at Green Hills, we have 10 staff, 11 teachers. Linear Park was our largest survey pool with 14 and 19. Meadows was the smallest with 0 of the staff and 9 teachers. Spring Valley, about in the middle, with 8 and 8, and Taylor was 6 and 12. So for a total of 59 teachers and 38 staff. And again, a family survey, a little caveat there. response rate was quite low, being less than 10%. So we want to interpret the data from the family survey with some caution and avoid drawing broad conclusions, because you can't really, if you don't have a representative pool, you can't draw broad conclusions. So it's broken out by site there. You see 29 at Green Hills, Lamina Park was the lowest at 11, Meadows 37, Spring Valley 45, and Taylor 51, for a total of 173. I have to say, on behalf of the site administrators, there were a lot of outreach. There was a lot of outreach, there was a lot of repetitive parent, swear, please respond, but, everybody's busy, and so it's just, sometimes there's a little bit of survey fatigue that happens too, and communications, and so figuring out the best way to get the word out is always a challenge. So we're gonna look at we're gonna go over the data from the student survey next, but before we do that, I wanna talk a little bit about a piece within Panorama that's called Playbook. Playbook, I'm really happy to report, is really aligned with our LCAP goals of engagement and supporting our students in this safe and socially, emotionally nurturing environment. So what Playbook does is it really takes the data and it puts it into action for us. So again, I spoke earlier about how I read my department survey and I realized I need to act. So what can I do, right? So as Trustee Barrio said, you want to go slow to go fast. So it's getting the survey out for my department on social emotional learning and figuring out what the next steps are and plan that methodically. So what Playbook does is it has a lot of research-backed, evidence-based strategies and interventions that we can put into place based on the surveys. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that. It fits really nicely into our MTSS tiered system of supports. So this is an example. I don't know if you can see from where you're sitting. I don't know if I'm going to be doing this correctly or turning this off. Because the top button, it has a little. So this right here is, these are lessons. So if you click on these blue links, these are lessons that a teacher can implement in the classroom based on a particular area in the survey. So let's say, for example, your sense of well-being is really low overall. So in Playbook, what it would do is it would give you a menu of lessons to choose from that you can then go and print out the actual lesson. So in this case, this is around would you rather. Which is totally appropriate because we do that at all of our meetings. We do would you rather and sharing questions. So this is a would you rather icebreaker, and this is the actual would you rather icebreaker question that you can then do in your classroom. So would you rather read a book or watch a movie? Want to try right now? No. Would you rather eat scratch pizza or scratch ice cream? It doesn't say scratch, but I need that. Would you rather play a video game or pet? So you get my drift. So this would be an icebreaker type, community building type activity that a teacher might do if students are not feeling engaged or, and under whatever category it might be. So this is just an example. So that was Playbook in practice. So let's take a look now at the student surveys and how the Playbook sort of integrates with that. So we're going to go through each of the areas, and you have your copy there. So I'm not going to read every single piece here, but what you can see is the percentage of favorable, the sequence of topics for both third to fifth. So on the left-hand column here, we have sense of belonging, teacher-student relationships, school climate, and engagement, and these are the percentages. And this is for third through fifth, and then sixth through eighth. And I think if Principal Sotnish was here, she'd say, we're probably going to get a little bit lower overall percentages at the middle school because it's middle school. So here we have sense of belonging. So we're going to focus here in this one on sense of belonging. Highest well-being, percent favorable topic in third through fifth, and sixth through eighth, same lowest percent favorable question. So we have third through fifth grade here, percent favorable, overall 63, but with this question being the highest, how much support do the adults at school show you? Third through fifth, 70%, that's pretty high. 6 through 8, when you were at school, how much do you feel like you belong? That was the highest question, favorable response, 56%. And then the lowest was, how much respect do students at school show you? And how much respect do students at school show you? So for both of those, third through fifth and 6 through 8. So student to student respect needs some improvement. based on the panorama. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at engagement. So we have our lowest percent favorable topic at both levels, 6 to 8 or 5 questions. We're below 30% favorable. Possible tier 1 focus might be engagement in our schools. So here we have 3rd through 5th grade. We have 63%. How focused are you on activities in your class? That was the highest. How focused are you on activities in your class? Was highest for both 3rd through 5th, 6th through 8th. So we're focused. Over here, some of the challenges are when you are not in school, how often do you talk about the ideas in your classes? We're not really talking about school when we're not in school. How excited are you about going to your classes? So we pose these questions. What's the disconnect between focus and excitement? So are we just complying to comply, or are we really fully engaged? And how might real-world relevance be ensured in curriculum and instruction? So how can we maybe increase that engagement by really connecting, the real words? So you see the engagement of students with a survey about food, right? That Director Gekas gave us. Kids are really engaged in that. They're really, because that's real life. It's relevant, right? It's something that they're experiencing. So might be a tier 1 support focus for us there to start with connecting more real life in our classrooms. And then we move on to teacher-student relationships. So we have over here, 3rd through 5th, the highest question, how respectful are teachers towards you, which is really good to hear. 84% at 3rd through 5th, that's really high. How respectful? 73%, that's very high for 6th through 8th grade, right? But over here, we have a little bit of a dichotomy, because although we're saying teachers are respectful, we're not really feeling that they really want to know how we really are. So some of these questions, if you were upset, how concerned would your teacher be? Only 43%. When your teachers ask, how are you? How often do you feel they really want to know your answer? And then in middle school, if you were upset when you came to class, how concerned would your teacher be? When your teachers ask, how are you? How often do they really want to know? So I don't know, some of the questions, we might question the questions a little bit. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, it's a start, right? It's a baseline for us. And then finally, school climate. So here are the questions. How positive or negative is the mood? The mood in our schools is very positive because those are the 2 highest in school climate. However, we are feeling disrespected. We're feeling that other kids don't follow rules. We're probably telling on each other quite a bit. So those are the lowest questions in terms of school climate. So here we just consider, bring it all together. This is sort of a summary slide here. Percent favorable over here on the left. Respect, focus, we're very focused, we're very respectful with our teachers, but not necessarily with each other. And we have a positive mood on our campuses. Some areas for growth, or some lower areas here, are showing respect towards each other, the students, and really feeling connected maybe with our teachers on a deeper level rather than on the surface respect level, and then following rules. And then just some questions that I pose here about, what might be a good focus for us moving forward in terms of tier 1 supports, and how might we just address that respect piece and the rules. And so we can do that with some playbook, putting that into practice here by promoting our overall students' well-being, strengthening those respectful relationships. So here are some examples of some lessons that we can tap into with playbook, in the area of respect, cultivating and exploring perspectives, respecting agreements with each other, relevance, making connections, exploring before explaining, and then the why of a rule. Why do we have rules, right? So again, it goes back to always starting with the why. And then support for taking action. So what are some next steps for us as a district? We had a professional learning 101 with Panorama back in April. They came to a principal meeting. So our site administrators learned how to analyze their results. They learned a little bit about the platform of Panorama, but we have a lot, we have a lot at our fingertips with our contract with Panorama. So what we're starting right now is Jeff and I are working with the Panorama folks to get our teachers logins so they can go in 3rd through 8th grade and look at their student surveys and start playing around with the Panorama Playbook platform. So they can start putting into practice some of those strategies and interventions to address some of our survey results. And then we have an ongoing, as I mentioned, contract. So Panorama can come back, they can do a staff meeting or two, they can come to a principal meeting and talk to us about some next steps with professional learning. And then we, as a district, need to really prioritize the feedback that we've received, right? And that means just looking at delving a little deeper into our students' experiences, right? And where are some areas that we can really focus on as a school, as grade level, and as individual teachers. And so these are just some questions. How does it align with our current initiatives and goals, especially our LCAP goals? What support is needed? And are the time, effort, and resources feasible, right, in those areas? So we really need to take a look at that quadrant right here with high effort, high value, do now. and then just monitoring progress towards those goals. So that is our panorama in a nutshell. Thank you for listening. Any questions or comments? Or
How often, they do it once a year, correct?
once a year. I'm not quite sure how we're going to move forward with the California Healthy Kids, integrating that because that's every other year, and Panorama. So
we're still doing that survey also.
We might consider doing it twice. It took us a while as we were getting started to just kind of agree on the survey questions, but at this point we were happy to kind of finalize the questions and have our students take it this spring. So
It'll be interesting to see how it compares after a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always good to have the 2 years or a year of growth with.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I myself would love to see, even for my department, like are some of the pieces that I've looked at and really considered putting into practice, as a department, making a difference, and how are people responding to that implementation. And so I think, again, going back to listening to their experiences and putting into action, going slow to go fast,
Right.
but having a plan.
And the playbook looks great. I mean, that looks like it's going to be a great resource for teachers to be able to have access to those lessons. And that's going to be a really added bonus.
Yes, yes.
Because the Healthy Kids don't offer a playbook.
No.
Once they give you it, it's like, okay, figure it
And
out.
something teacher user-friendly, just being able to just do a quick, 5-10 minute community circle with a quick playbook idea. I mean, it's not daunting. It's not a big book that you have to, it's just a quick little lesson, and we're going to try it, and it gives you ideas to choose from. So yeah, I agree.
That looks really good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I love the idea that you guys are willing to listen and take the survey and get the feedback and act on it. I would love to kind of circle back in a few months as we think about that quadrant, because I think that quadrant's actually really helpful. But maybe once all the dust settles and you guys have some time to think about it, I think it would be a great sort of future agenda item.
For sure, definitely.
TikTok challenge in a positive way. I mean, I was just saying that to Lisa. And, we hear there's a lot of negative TikTok challenges that use the kids, but if you want the kids to talk about school outside of school, you got to go to them at their level. And so, and I know some of these apps are not always positive, but we can hopefully turn a negative to positive change in school sites. So anyway, thank you for the insight. It's always good to know, in order for us to make changes, positive changes, to give those kids better experiences, we got to know what they're thinking, and we got to engage them. And that's the key word, is how do you engage them at their level, right?
Yes.
Because the way technology is going so quick, and all these apps and all the social media, that's what you're gotta focus on that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that, because I see my kids and everybody. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve?
Need a second?
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, district business. First on the district business is middle school physical education, PE framework. We saw the presentation. This is an action item. If there's no, I need a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any other questions, comments that you have left, you forgot? No? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Next on the business is revised certificated director coordinator salary schedule.
So I'll just give a little background on this. So we have a position that is currently called a special education program coordinator. It currently sits with the MEA, which is a teachers union. Though some of these positions, such as TOSA positions, can be a little gray, right? Because they're teaching positions, but not within the classroom. They also do administrative work. So this does two things. One, it puts that position as the coordinator of special education on our management salary schedule, reflecting 210 days. Then it also adds the master stipend to the certificated directors and coordinators salary schedule. We did add this to the principals last year, and for some reason, it was not added to the certificated director. So those two things, and I'm suggesting that we just approve this revised salary schedule for certificated director and coordinator.
Great. Another action item. I need a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any questions, comments? No? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Last one is the resolution 24-25-11, open a revolving cash fund.
I will do my best. CBO Paulette is not here today because she's unfortunately attending a funeral in the LA area. So my understanding is that there is a revolving cash fund. We don't know if it had to do with kind of some of the changeover with our CBOs, but we had a revolving cash fund with Citibank that they closed. Citibank closed it on us. We are not really able to conduct a district business without having a revolving cash fund. We are now working with kind of Wells Fargo to open one app, and that does involve a resolution so that we can just do general operating from it. So basically approving this resolution so we can move forward with opening up a new account that was closed not by our choice, but by the financial institution.
This is another action item. I need a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Good question. I mean, is there a number attached to this? Or it just is, what is the cash flow amount is?
I think if we look at the resolution, it is,
I didn't see it.
it's zero, I believe it's zero, but all the way up to 75,000. Well, you're right, I don't see
I
it
didn't see it.
either. But I do know that we had talked about it within our, and it's 0 to 75,000. And for, this is kind of, yes, for all elementary schools, that's kind of standard for a revolving cash flow. It's not something we, as Millbrae, created that amount.
No, it's okay, but it would be nice if it was in the numbers were in the resolution, so this way.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's the difference between a cash fund and a revolving cash fund?
That might be a question I am not able to answer. I certainly can get back to you on that, or have Ms. Collette, who will be back tomorrow, get back to you.
Okay. This doesn't mean that it can go negative, right? Or we don't know.
No, it's not that. It basically, my understanding is that without one, for example, when we get the developer fees, we have no place to really
deposit
it right now.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, which is fine. I just wish the resolution and that didn't say anything about that. So I don't mind approving it. Just it would have been. It would.
Yes. But yeah, our apologies. I think it was something that was discovered kind of late last week, and so to be honest, we were. We were publishing on Friday, but we knew in order to conduct district business, it was important to get it onto this agenda and not wait till June 3rd.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Okay, motion carries. All right, discussion item. We tried to do this last time, but here we are. We got a little bit more time this facilities and bond projects, but this is about just tree trimming.
Yes, and let me just actually put on that this is a little bit different from let's separate this from the eucalyptus trees because they are different. This is really more of I think there's a few projects that I just want to say that we are working on requests for proposals and requests for quotes. So one of them is an architect pool, the other one is working on a request for proposal for a bond manager. But one of the things that I did want to talk about is just the trees in general. Last time I think we spoke a little bit more about eucalyptus trees specifically. This is in general, view it as more just yearly tree maintenance. So we have two kind of quotes, and last time we attached the eucalyptus trees. This one is more general. If you look at Brightview, you'll see that there's a proposal for each of the school sites. I believe the Brightview one comes just under $75,000. If it is over $75,000, remember we would need a request for an RFP for that. The other quote, professional tree company, we always do get two quotes. That is a quote that is over $75,000. So I think one of the discussion items, it is for discussion. So if it's something that the board is open and wants to do, we certainly can bring it back under consent on the June 3rd meeting. But of course, that would only be, Brightview would be your only option because that is a company that we currently use, but that's the only one that's under the financial threshold too of not going out for an RFP.
Go ahead. I think Frank had some concerns about the eucalyptus trees and about the stump removal and not doing the roots or something.
Correct, and that's why right now we're not discussing the eucalyptus trees. We're kind of taking that separate. This is general tree maintenance. I mean, perhaps I didn't look at it directly, but if you look at, for example, the Green Hills, you don't see any of the eucalyptus trees on there. These are not, so this is just general tree maintenance and not removing the eucalyptus.
Yeah.
We do have a general maintenance contract, but this would be above and beyond for summer projects.
I guess, yeah. Oh, right.
No, I just had concerns about the scope of the work that we were presented for $75,000. And so my problem with the whole thing is there change orders allowed? Because when they go into to remove trees and they start trimming trees, are they gonna have to start digging, which is gonna be an extra cost on top of that $75,000?
You know, that's a good question. What I can do is not bring it under consent. I mean, you guys can continue discussing, but I can get the answers to your questions and then we can just put it under district business for next time, and then I can make sure that Rudy addresses some of those questions.
I just had a question. When I go through each proposal, it doesn't look like they're apples to apples, and I can't tell if that's their opinion as to what needs to be done.
That is true. So basically it was, the way we address this quote is, you know, do an assessment of each site and assess where, I also agree, it wasn't the exact same, because what we asked each company to do for quotes is Rudy walked them through each site, both companies, and said, what is your, feeling in terms of what needs to be maintained? And that is what these companies came back with.
Okay.
So it isn't exactly, comparing it apples to apples. It is basically like, hey, we're at the site. Both companies walked the sites with Rudy and determined what they felt the need was for tree maintenance.
Right. I guess when I sort of look at the different proposals, it looks like professional tree company may be cheaper on the actual pruning, but that they've included a lot more tree removal. And I guess the question is, if we need those trees removed or not, then they're actually a cheaper quote. It looks like, I haven't done a full comparison. But, these are not the eucalyptus trees that we're moving, it's other trees.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think we might bring eucalyptus tree when we have more information back to discussion, but for tonight, I just want to be clear, we're not talking about that. These are different quotes that I had uploaded at the last meeting.
I think what I would love to see is kind of like a full-blown decision about which trees or what is the scope that we as a school district want to do. Therefore, like determining whether or not we want to remove these trees or not remove these trees, and then have that basically priced out as apples to apples so that we could compare. Or, I don't know how we'd come to necessarily the right conclusion, because, on the surface looks like a professional tree is more expensive, but when it comes to the pruning piece, it actually looks like less. So if it needs to be done, I wouldn't want to say, let's not do professional tree if those trees do need to be removed.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I'm just trying to think about this because I think part of the reason why we bring up these companies, right, is that we don't necessarily have the expertise as arborists to say, hey, this is, like, we determine the scope. And I think that's where these quotes are a little different. In other situations, we may say, well, this is what we want our final result to be. And then we can compare the two quotes. And I think unfortunately when it comes to, I think this is why we have these discussions so that, I can check in with Rudy and bring up the concerns and questions about the board. But I think I'm just struggling a little because we don't have an arborist who works on site who is able to say, hey, here's our scope and now let's get price comparisons. Different tree companies, like different doctors and different lawyers, do occasionally have differing opinions. So
The city has one. I wonder if we can tap into the city for the others.
I certainly can ask.
Yeah, I guess my only question would be, like Karen was saying, some trees, one company said 2 trees need to go down, another one not. I guess that for safety reasons, the ones that were recommended for cutting down or not, we need to find out which is the safest way. Is it going to be good enough, or trimming them down and come to find out a year later that should have been taken down. So those are my concern is not the trimmings, the ones where they disagree. One, I think, had 2 trees to come down and the other one. And so if it needs to go down, just take it down. Let's not wait for it to happen. That would be my concern.
Right.
With that one. So those are the questions for Rudy, for him to make that decision.
Would it be helpful if Rudy came to answer some of these questions?
He might not even know the answers because,
Because it's an
So,
arborist.
he might, but an arborist, and I know the city has one because every time I need to cut down a tree in my house, I have to call the city.
Well, certainly, I think just your feedback is helpful in terms of what direction to go next. And so I will talk to Rudy, and what we could do is get some questions answered, and then we'll determine if we should bring it back on a future June agenda.
I do feel like we also have some parents that are arborists. I don't know.
Well, if you know who they are, you can let me know and we can, I do think, one of the things that we do face when we get quotes and we're working with our San Mateo School Insurance Group is some of our smaller companies, as much as we may want to support local companies, are not able to carry the same insurance requirements as larger companies. And so that is sometimes just some challenges we run into.
Right, and I only meant just an arborist to kind of give you a sense of which quote or estimate is more appropriate at this time. A second opinion.
All right, I hope we gave you enough information.
You did, thank you.
Anyway, all right, thank you. Possible future agenda items, anything? I'm pretty sure this is the end of the year, so for possible future agenda items, something that we could probably talk about our next meeting, how we can start talking about future agenda items for next school year. I don't want to wait till the last minute and end up having to put all of our requests at the end, like we did this year. So that we need to work on that maybe next week, kind of be more thoughtful about how we ask for things. Other than that, thank you for a great meeting. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
All right.